Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our review and reaction to the Only Murders in the Building Season 3 premiere. We're talking all about Episode 1, Episode 2. Let's go. It has been a very long time. I am stoked. I am perplexed. I am feeling all of the emotions humanly possible.
I know who did it.
Really? I know who did it.
Oh.
Okay.
I wonder if we have the same person.
Okay. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Cliff.
Tobert. Oh. Cliff?
It's Cliff. Listen, everybody. I've got the answer. I figured it out.
Listen, before we started this, I did a preseason who is in. I thought it was Matthew Broderick, who was not even in these 2 episodes, but he was in the trailer. Because when I saw him, I was like, what? Matthew Broderick. But now, listen, we're gonna get into why, it's Tobert.
Real? Are we now? Are we?
Okay, I'm gonna ask you guys.
Yep.
It's only 2 episodes in. Who do you think is the killer? Do you think we've even seen them yet? Is this going to be like season 1 where it's spoiler alert, Jan, where we didn't see her for, a couple episodes in? Or have we met the person already? Let me know in the comments.
Yeah, this is just going to be such a fun season to talk about. Like, we already had a field day with season 2, but it's just...
And there are some really high stakes this season. It is not just about Ben getting killed twice. It is also... Mabel's moving out of the building. What?
Yeah.
Oliver's having a heart attack. What? Like, there's high stakes for everybody.
They've wasted no time. And
no.
I'm thoroughly excited and worried. I'm
so worried. Mabel, please don't leave the building.
How are we so invested in these fictional people who live together in the same building? They're not even hanging out with Mabel that much. She's just like sad. Okay. We will get into so much here.
Yes.
Before we do go further here, be sure to join our Patreon. We have a link for you guys in the description below. Every Tuesday, we are live over there with the stream that we're talking about Only Murders in the Building or answering questions from all of you guys. It is a really fun weekly live stream. We want you guys to be a part of it, and thank you to all of our patrons who have joined. We really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, we have a live stream tonight. So head on over there, link in description, and join us for the live stream tonight. Okay, I mentioned briefly Mabel is leaving the building.
Yeah.
Tinfoil hat right away.
All right.
How are they going to keep her in the building? This is how.
All right.
Okay, so... the revolving apartment of Sting, Amy Schumer, and then we had Ben in there as well, who is now dead. Who's going to end up in that apartment is going to be Mabel. And how is that going to happen? They're going to do their podcast, and this time it's going to be about Ben, who's this really famous actor who died in the building, and their podcast is just going to get shot to the moon. Like, it's going to be so huge, and they're going to start making so much money with it that she's going to have enough money to take that apartment. That's what I think is going to happen.
Well, that makes sense.
Especially since she was talking in this episode, was sort of like, what am I doing with myself? I'm 29, I'm almost 30. Like, I feel like I don't have direction. I feel really lost. Like, why can't I get it together? I'm such a late bloomer. I think that's how this is going to work for her.
I think it's also a situation where Charles doesn't really need the podcast money in a lot of ways. He's got his Brazos residuals that have apparently set him up for life, and he's just good. I know Oliver has had his fair share of problems with money, but
he has.
Either it's a situation where she takes more of the business role on the podcast, and maybe she gets a little bit of a larger cut with that, or that like you said, they're just so unbelievably successful that she's able to just afford it no problem.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't sure if the show was setting up that maybe she was going to move into a direction of like more of like a PI because she's quite good at that, but that wouldn't afford her a spot at the Arconia, and they can't have her leave.
No, that's sort of the interesting dilemma with some of these storylines. Like, they're not going to kill Oliver. Like, he's obviously got some major heart problems now, but the show is about the trio.
Absolutely. And with the heart attack that we saw, where the doctor was like, listen, you got to bring your stress down. You got to bring your stress down. Maybe he's also going to have to take a step back from doing theater, and just like the podcast gets really successful, it makes him feel good. He feels less stressed while he's doing it. So it's also a good out for him as well.
The storyline, I think, out of the trio that I am the most curious about right now, it's got to be Mabel, just because of the fact that we don't really get the clearest sense in these 2 episodes of what she has been doing for the past year. It does get it feels like, she has drifted a little bit from Charles and Oliver, who are working on the play.
I
They've
don't like
spent,
that.
I don't like it either. And it sort of speaks to this loneliness that she's kind of suffering from. I think with everything that's gone on in her life, she's probably not altogether trusting of new people. She's probably very nervous about putting herself out there.
Yep.
And I think she's clearly eager to get another case in the way in which that the other two aren't as much, because it's like all of a sudden, all right, I've got an excuse to hang out with my, as she calls them, my olds again.
That's right.
And then beyond all that, it's like, okay, now I have a purpose. Now I have a way to shine. And that itself is interesting, because anytime she's associated with these cases, she could slip back into being Bloody Mabel again. But it's just like, clearly the idea of doing this is worth the risk for her.
Absolutely. And I think that it's about time, we're in the 3rd season, that there is a bit more direction for her that isn't a love interest. And I know we've all seen in the trailer that she's going to be with Tobert for some of this. And I was a bit worried that was going to be like another love interest. And maybe it is. But I think he's going to play a really important role as the killer. Okay, we're going to get into why for me. Okay,
right.
Why is he the killer? So they've set up that Ben is this huge star. He's going to be part of this play. He's the biggest star in the play. He has a huge draw. And he's doing sort of a double duty. He's like, listen, I'm going to be in this play, but I've also hired this person to document this entire thing that he can maybe cut together as a documentary to sell to Netflix or something. They love that stuff. I mean, there's a Jake Paul documentary on there right now. They'll take anything. But I'm just saying. So who's the person that has the most access to him? It's Tobert. And on top of that, he's been documenting every crappy thing that Ben has been doing. And we saw he's passive aggressive to everybody. He's mean to everybody. He's got a lot of people. There's a lot of suspects of people that would want to kill him. But when we saw that scene where he was pointing out every person and was like, you know, I did this, you did this, I didn't get a good enough dressing room, the motives that people would have to kill him, Tobert wasn't there, but he was with him all the time. So because of that, who would have been with him at the elevator? It's probably Tobert. And Tobert has seen everything he's done. So it may have been like, I'm documenting this really terrible person that's just doesn't deserve his fame or any of the pats on the back he's getting for everything he's done. He's just a crappy person that's mean to people. The world would be better off without him. That's what I think the motivation is. I don't think that it's anybody that was pointed out.
I don't think it's Tobert, but
How dare you?
Yeah, I don't think it's Tobert, but you know what? I understand.
Who do you think the killer is, and why is it Tobert?
It's not Tobert. I thought we've already spelled this out. No, I will say the person who probably would love this to be Tobert most of anybody is Jesse Williams, because I think, he's known for Jackson Avery, who, Jackson's made some mistakes on Grace, but it's sort of like, he is kind of like, this dreamy, likable doctor, not McDreamy, but he's still dreamy. And I think he would love the opportunity to play somebody who is just sinister and really different. And there's an interesting case to be made, because we don't know a lot about Tobert. Like, why does he have this job? Maybe he is one of these people I thought I would be an artiste, and instead my job is following around this
fool.
Yeah. And Paul Rudd, by the way, Paul Rudd is
awesome.
I love Paul Rudd so much. Seems like the nicest man, and for him to play this just complete just louse of a human being, it's really, really funny. I feel like Paul Rudd just films these scenes and then he just punches himself in the face, just being like, "This is not me. How can I act like this to people?" My my one other Paul Rudd joke.
Yeah.
You know how the internet memes, to quote Charles in
Memes.
the trailer, is that Paul Rudd never ages. I love how they can do these flashbacks of him in Girl Cop and acting as though it's just perfect because Paul Rudd looks just as good then
I
as he
know.
does now. It
It's
just
so
put some
true.
blonde in his hair.
It's so true.
Paul
No,
Rudd.
I think it's just it's very interesting how they've set this up that there really is so many suspects and they did it right away that,
Yeah.
it's could be the producer, it could be the love interest, it could be, Loretta, where there's some sort of seems like there's some sort of jealousy or something there. I mean, Loretta just hates it's not Loretta. Loretta hates him, he hates her. He called her a snake in front of
Yeah.
everybody. He's got a problem with Charles. It's not Charles. Charles actually it was really surprising this storyline, but I mean, we have seen the trio do some kind of dark stuff that was a little bit kind of out of character, like when Bunny was outside their door last season just sobbing and crying, and they're
Mhm.
just kind of like sitting on the other side of the door just leaving her there. That it always felt very out of character. Now we have this backstory on Brazos where Charles got an 8-year-old Ben fired from the show, which, he must have been really terrible, or Charles was really just feeling himself and was kind of heartless about it. I mean, he was a little kid. So it feels a bit out of character for this plot line, but who knows what Charles was like back then.
That's sort of the leap that I'm trying to make with a lot of it, is that we haven't spent a ton of time with Charles like in the heyday of Brazos, and
Yeah.
given how much he has talked about this, the elephant in the room that is me, I think he must have been like halfway through the run thinking that he was going to be like, the future generation Leonardo DiCaprio or something, that he was going to be the biggest actor in the world. Everything was going right for him. This kid would never amount to anything. He was in his way. It's certainly out of character for sure with the Charles that we know and love based on what we're seeing. But
It was a long time ago. I mean, he may have really been feeling himself.
I do like, though, that this is sort of the reason for the discord between the two of them, that it is like specifically something that Charles did, because it does sort of make it so that, okay, yeah, Ben is a terrible person, but at the same time, Charles isn't a saint. These other people are not saints and completely innocent in any of this.
Yeah, but there's still the line from last season that's still ringing in my
Yeah.
head where Charles had said to Ben something along the lines of stay away from her, get away from her, leave her alone. And it's kind of like, okay, so Ben's problem with Charles is this Brazos thing, which I
Yeah.
completely understand. We saw this scene where he was like, talking to Mabel from beyond the grave, where he was talking
Yeah.
about sort of how insecure he was and how that changed the entire course of his life, of who he was inside and the types of roles he was choosing. And is he good enough to be any better of that? But on the other side, Charles didn't really necessarily have a problem with it. He barely remembered getting him fired. So who is she then? And what is Ben doing? Is it about Kimber? Is it about Lucy? Is it like, who is it? Is he sniffing around Joy?
Okay, so tinfoil hat here. Let's just get
Okay.
one name out of this. It's not Mabel. And the reason it's
No.
not Mabel is because we see Mabel having this sort of scene where she's imagining girl cop Ben like talking with her. And I don't think she would be doing that if there was like something dark or twisted where like Ben is bothering her for a year. It just that whole scene doesn't make any sense if it's Mabel that he's after. So
No.
and I don't know, we don't have enough evidence that like Loretta and Charles have some really sort of big relationship. So it's like I am kind of leaning towards it being Lucy just because, we know He cares a lot for her, but we also haven't even seen Lucy on screen so far this season.
No, we haven't. Okay, let's talk about Meryl Streep because we're
Uh,
15 minutes in and
yes.
we haven't spoken about how amazing the show was opening with this beautiful monologue from her and Oliver just being mesmerized by Loretta and just being like, basically, where have you been all my life? Like, where have you been? Why aren't you on my stage all the time? How amazing she is when she's just up there and not nervous and just feeling herself. And then we see her at the table reading. Woof, she is terrible, which had to have been so much fun for Meryl Streep to play a terrible actress when she's such an icon.
I'm now here to play a new person in the video. I am Matt Matthias. See, this is the thing. You just trying out
Matt.
trying out accent work, everybody. I understand why Meryl Streep took this role now. It's just it had to be so much fun for her. It had to be a really different change of pace to sort of go through all this. Like she's clearly got a little something going on with Oliver. So you've got like that, which is very endearing, but it's also the, could Meryl Streep have actually killed Ben? And it's just sort of like
it would be so obvious. He called her a snake in front of everyone. Afterwards, she was just basically like, I hate him.
Yeah, like I know I said Meryl Streep killed him when we did our trailer video.
I said Matthew Broderick. We haven't even seen him yet.
I think Matthew Broderick's still on the table. I do not think Meryl Streep is. Just mostly, while it's clear that Loretta hates Ben, it's also we see in these episodes, this was her break. She has been trying this for decades.
Yeah.
She may hate Ben, but I think she recognizes that Ben is sort of her opportunity to have something she's wanted her entire life. And if you kill off Ben, like, is that still there? I mean, we see in these episodes, Oliver just like frantically trying to figure out if there is still anything with Death Rattle. Let's just pause for a second because I have a question for you and for all of you guys in the comments. Would you actually watch Death Rattle? Because this is a murder mystery apparently where the only person who knows the truth is a baby. Like, is this good?
I would absolutely watch it. I love the theater. I'll watch anything.
I would watch it just because Oliver directed it. Like, it is weird. I will say that. I think I don't know how I feel about his it has to be a musical now idea. I
think that talk that he had with Maxine, who was basically like, listen, I've pre-reviewed the show, but no one's seen it yet.
Yeah.
And it wasn't good. There's a life that's missing from this. She's really honest with him. She's like, listen, I haven't always been your biggest fan with anything, but I've always been honest. And I'll be honest when you've done something really good or when, you've done something that's kind of lackluster. And that's what this is. Like, for whatever reason, you're just not taking a chance.
Okay, now that we are 18 minutes into this, it's time to tell everybody who did this. It's time to unveil the truth. Okay, so stick with me, everybody. The murderer is Cliff. And if you are like, who is Cliff? It's because he had a very brief role in the premiere. So Cliff is the son of Donna, the big-time producer. He's a producer on Death Rattle. He's getting his feet wet and a lot of this. Now, why would Cliff do this? It kind of goes back to something you mentioned Maxine a second ago, and she clearly was going to pan this play. Now, ultimately, if Cliff is a producer and he's actually somewhat decent at this job, he's probably around the production a lot. So he probably knew that this play was, to use one of Ben's own words, stinkeroony. He probably knew this was bad and was just like, okay, do we have an insurance policy? Do we have something that we can find a way to get out of this, get a lot of money back, or make more money? Or did Ben do something that made him even more angry? Or
then the dressing room? I don't like my dressing room, and you, Cliff, didn't do anything about
it. That cannot be the motive. It cannot be the dressing room.
However, it could be that Ben just needled him and over and over and over again until he just couldn't take it anymore. It may have not just been the dressing room. It may have been like the dressing room. I need only green M&Ms. I need my socks warmed before I put them on. It could just be a list of things where finally Cliff just couldn't take it anymore. But it's actually Tobert.
Okay, it's not Tobert, but here's the other thing with Cliff. It's just that we don't even know if he actually wants to be a producer. Like, we've seen this in like 200 different shows and movies or whatever else,
Mhm.
like the son or the daughter of like the really rich and successful person. They've grown up with a lot of privilege. They've sort of grown up with this parent being like, you're going to do the family business. You're going to be a part of this. And you kind of get brainwashed into sort of thinking like, okay, this is my job. This is my life. I'm going to deal with it. But maybe over time you get resentful, you get unhappy with all of it. And then you're sort of building up all this emotion to where eventually you snap. Like, it's possible we have not seen the killer yet, but it's sort of like at the same time, we have so many interesting suspects that are on this group right now. Like, I don't think they have to save the murderer for later just because we have so many interesting possibilities just here as is.
It's not a woman. I think that they did Jan, they did Poppy. I don't think it's gonna be every season it's going to be a woman. So for me, all the women in this season are off the table. I don't think that it's any of them. I think they don't want it to be every single season. It's kind of the same feeling. It's the same. It's a woman over and over again. So I think that for me, all the women are off the table. It's none of them.
Okay, here's the one problem I have with these episodes. And by and large, I don't have any problems because, I love this show. I thought this was a funny reintroduction to a lot of the characters, but they didn't have to re-kill Ben. Like, I feel
Oh,
like
I loved that.
okay, see, this is my hot take on all of it. Was the scene of him coming back being like, I'm alive, really funny? Yes. It was great. There were great moments there.
And it gave him to be in the room with everybody to be like, you did this, you did
Yeah.
this, you did this. It was so
It's
good.
just that it's like at the same time, I love that scene, but it's also kind of like at the same time, it felt like they just needed to find a way for him to die in the building so that
Yes.
it could have had the first death and it would have been fine.
No. Listen, it's called Murders in the Building. The murders have to happen in the building. I didn't expect him to get re-killed. I was really surprised by it. I thought that the connection that they were going to make was just that he had taken over Amy Schumer / Sting's old apartment. So
Yeah.
he lived in the building. That was going to be good enough. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'll buy that. It's good enough. When they actually had him come back in and, get pushed down that elevator shaft, I was like, yes, the murder is back in the building.
Here's what I wanted. Because we went this whole offseason thinking that Ben was the victim. Like, when he came back to life, I nearly had a heart attack. I nearly became Oliver in that moment. So what I actually wanted was I wanted him to come back to life, but then I wanted somebody else to die. And then all of a sudden it was going to be like, did Ben kill this person? Because it seems like Ben thought they may have killed him, and so he's out for... And then it's like, all of a sudden, our entire preconceived notion of this season is just completely in the trash, and Ben is actually alive.
No, I wouldn't have liked that. That would have been really cheap for me.
Yeah, no, see, that's why you just should have killed Ben at the theater and just had that be it.
No, in the building. It has to be in the building. It's Murders in the Building.
Let's all fight in the comments about this, everybody. But
We're gonna fight right here.
No, you know what though? It's fine because
it's fine.
This is one of those things where it's just sort of like that's just a premise-based thing. I think the reality of this show, like the entire fun of this show, is sitting around and arguing over who was responsible for it. Like, I think nobody's going to be that upset that Ben is gone. He's a terrible person. Charles doesn't even get to sit in like the main chamber of his funeral service. He's got to like sit outside and watch TV. One little just hilarious thing in there, the minister was like, and next coming up is Harry Styles. And then they like cut away before you get to see, why is Harry Styles reading a eulogy?
That's why I'm saying this is the season that the podcast is really going to pop off. I mean, when you have somebody who's that famous, yeah, I know that it seemed kind of ridiculous on the show to have an overflow room or 3 overflow rooms, but that's actually really common with really big funerals. You can only fit so many people in the church. Other people want to be there. There are overflow rooms. So, I mean, you got Harry Styles at your funeral, then, he's really famous. This is going to be the season that their podcast goes to number 1.
I'm really excited for the rest of this season moving forward. Like, I love season one. I really enjoy season two, but season two got like a little bit too messy, and I'm still not sure the murder actually made sense at the end of the day.
Still, that bunny episode, The
Yeah.
Life and Bunny, is like my absolute favorite episode. It just got me so deep in my heart.
I am really excited for where this season is going. I love the cast. We have so many great people, and
And we haven't even seen Matthew Broderick yet.
Matthew Broderick is going to be great. Maybe he will help reveal that Cliff is the killer, and then his prophecy on this show will be fulfilled.
Tobert.
No, I mean Matthew Broderick's purpose on this show is to prove that I'm right, and that Cliff is
that I am right.
Halfway through at the end of the season, Matthew Broderick's gonna pop right up and be like, it was to prove, insert whichever one of us is right. Let's just both be wrong, and then we'll just sit on this video in shame.
No, I'm fine with that. I'll take an L. I love a show that makes it so that I'm just like, I'm way off base, and it really surprised me.
All that matters is that we have a good time. It's the friends or the murderers we meet along the way.
Absolutely. So hit that subscribe button. We are going to be here all season. We're going to be bringing you 2 videos every week. We're going to be bringing you a review and then kind of like a theory preview. And then over on our Patreon, like we said, every single Tuesday, we're going to be doing an Only Murders in the Building live stream. We have one tonight. Yes. So hit that link. Head on over, join the Patreon, and join in the conversation. And thank you to all our Patreons.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. We'll see you here next time.